Let's get ready to rumble!
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
When Danny Flexen asked Frank Warren, will you still continue to be involved in the Joe Joyce business of promoting his fights?
I think we've got to think what all the options are, including a couple of things that you've mentioned, and also if he did carry on, who he'd fight, what he'd get paid, what's the risk and gain.
Frank Warren broke it down to what level of opponent he's going to be fighting and how much he's going to get paid, or how much he thinks he should get paid. It's basically relegation in boxing terms. So let's say he was to rematch Cash Ali next fight. He got 200 grand for the first Cash Ali fight. That's what was reported. He doesn't get that this time. As long as you're winning, there's a certain cap that Frank will be able to pay you. But, you lose 1, 2, I don't know how it's structured. And now Frank can't get him in the ring with top-ranked contenders because his market value has gone down. Then he has to take lesser purses. That's how these contracts are structured. If Frank does a deal with Eddie, you get the Johnny Fisher fight at the Copper Box, that's going to sell out. But he's more or less playing roulette with Joe on a cash out. But if his comeback fights are at the York Hall, he's not going to get that much money. How motivated is he to take on the likes of Cash Ali, that level of fighter, but for considerably less this time? How motivated is he at the prospect that promoters will now try and use him as a stepping stone? At Queensbury, Moses, Adelaide, try and rebuild Adelaide with a big win against Joyce. He's still a valuable scalp. Can't sell out the 0-2, but a valuable scalp in building a prospect. Then you've got Solomon Dakers. And we don't have to stop at Queensbury. Ben Shalom might see Joyce as a scalp for the likes of Fraser Clark. Eddie Hearn might see him as Johnny Fisher food, and even though they're buddies, boxers have been known to put aside friendships to do business. These are the realities Joe Joyce wakes up to today as a heavyweight boxer. His issues used to be, why won't Tyson Fury defend his WBC belt against me? Why is he fighting Derek ahead of me? I'm rated ahead of Derek. Why won't Usyk fight me? Look how highly ranked I am. Joyce had to watch the guy that he stopped, his stablemate, while they were both unbeaten, surpass him and go on to fight Usyk for the title, or titles. He had to watch that. What was he thinking at the time, and what's he thinking now? Daniel Dubois is a quote-unquote world champion, and he's had a shot at a world title previously. Joe Joyce still hasn't had a world title fight yet. And the question is will he get one? Just lost to somebody he was supposed to beat, a 40-year-old underdog. His issues with sanctioning body politics and stuff of that nature. The one thing he didn't have to worry about was getting lowballed on his purses and not be able to get fights with top-ranked contenders. Now, when you're in the workforce, there are certain things to consider. The manual labor that you was able to do 5-10 years ago might not be so easy to take on in 5 years' time. Do you have a plan for them? And in Joe Joyce's case, at 38, he's slow. He has no legs to get away from punches. He has no head movement. He's too heavy. The iron chin myth has been exposed. So he might want to carry on for a variety of reasons. He wants to get back into big money. Maybe he wants to fulfill that dream of being a world champion. I mean, this is an Olympic silver medalist. He's one of the faces on the WSB tournaments. He has high expectations of himself, or at least he had. Maybe he still does. But not only has the market value depreciated, his tools look like they've depreciated. Derek tapped into something in that build-up, didn't he? You're not about this life, Joe. You're not about this life. You're a nice guy. And I don't think Derek just meant as a boxer. If Derek had beat Daniel Dubois when Joyce did, would he have just let Frank get away with promoting Daniel like he never lost, and Daniel actually gets a crack at a world title before Joe? No, Derek would have spoke up. He would have been vocal. But Joe, he seems very passive, doesn't say much. He's not the most articulate boxer outside the ring, and he's not very articulate inside it either. If Joe carries on boxing with his lack of detail to defense, taking more punches than the average top 10, top 15 heavyweight would, it might not be long before Joe finds himself in real physical trouble. It might not be long. Derek landed so much flush lefts and rights on Saturday. Derek took some punishment, but Derek was always trying to roll, bob and weave, move his head from shots. He was always conscious of defense. While Joe has no concept on catching, spacing, range, slipping, none at all. You can go back and watch the Berman-Stavern fight early in his career and watch him get lit up by Stavern. Lit up. Bryant Jennings was very unlucky not to get at least a draw with Joe. At least. A bigger issue for Joe might well be the way he's being managed, though, and his matchmaking. Like, okay, first Zhang fight, you can't see all the obstacles that are going to give you trouble. And you have to take L's in life. The first fight, fair enough. The rematch? Whose idea was it to take a rematch months after? Whose idea was that? Was that Joe's idea? Or did Frank tell him to do that? Whoever's idea it was fucking shit.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
You're putting a man who you clearly see doesn't make adjustments in the ring. You're putting him in the ring against a technician and a puncher who's already defeated him with relative ease. Oh, well, this time we're just going to bulk up and come back heavier. Whose idea was that? Was that your idea, Joe? Also, the Chisora fight on the back of that Cash Alley performance wasn't the brightest idea either. Richard Towers was screaming at the top of his voice at Cash Alley to throw your hands because he saw there was a big scalp there for the taking on the night. But Cash is Cash, innit? What's happened to Sam Jones? When did he leave the fold? Whoever was in the capacity of management for Joe Joyce when he had the interim title around the time he beat Joseph Parker should have been looking at their commodity. Yo, Joe takes a lot of punches, you know, but the fans love him. The media love him. We need to match him carefully until he gets a shot at one of them straps because he's the interim champion. That's what Frank would have did with Daniel, but Joe didn't have no one in his corner. Like, where is Sam Jones? Where is Sam Jones? But anyway, his lack of ability to guide his career, taking the right fights, not allowing himself to get overtook by people he's beat on the roster, and then his inability to defend himself from punches is a bad combination. And it could just be a matter of 2 or 3 fights before we're looking at Joe and saying, whoa, is he taking too much punches? Joe could pull off upsets against some of them prospects who are trying to use him as stepping stones. He could. He could beat some fringe contenders as well. Maybe actually some ranked top 10 contenders. The problem is, how often can he do it? I think he could pull off the odd upset, but more often than not, when he steps up levels, he's going to get beat. He's going to get beat. And the problem is, let's say he does beat a fringe contender, a prospect, it's how much punishment he's going to take to get the victory and how much punishment he's going to take in the losses. There's a lot of punches waiting for Joe if he continues boxing. A whole load that he's not going to be able to avoid. Joe can reinvent himself, but someone needs to sit down and be real with him at 38. Tell him what his limitations are. The 2 men he's lost against, one of them is the most experienced heavyweight in the game, in Derek Chisora. And I can say that because I didn't write Derek off. I never wrote Derek off. A lot of people wrote that fight off when it was announced. I didn't.
Howard Foster looks at Joe Joyce, he stopped it. Zhilei Zhang has beaten Joe Joyce, whose unbeaten record is gone.
They was on that Quest of the Wave juggernaut thing. They was riding that hard. And they overlooked Zhang. And they overlooked Joe's limitations. And they got caught out. The next phase of Joe's career is contingent on the matchmaking and the strategizing. That has to improve. At 38, does he really have time on his hands to do all what I'm saying? He needs to take some time off. A lot of people are going to say he needs a new coach, he needs a new coach. That's not more important than the matchmaking and the strategizing on who he fights, when he fights, why he fights. Getting back in the ring, winning, doing his capoeira moves to celebrate victory. If necessary, if the opportunities are not in the UK, the Yoka fight in France, the rematch, that's excellent. I'm sure he used to fight on the PBC. There could be opportunities out in America, but PBC with them Amazon dates, maybe not. There's a couple of ways that Joe can look at it. Glass half empty, glass half full. He can say to himself, I lost against Zhang, now I'm losing fights I'm not supposed to lose against underdogs, 40-year-old veteran underdogs. Maybe I'm not that guy. He can look at it like that, or he can say to himself, the pressure is off really. You know what I mean? The pressure is off. They're all writing me off. They don't think I can compete at the top level, so the pressure is off. I think Joe is fighting with a little bit of pressure on him that he's putting on himself. And if he plays his cards right, it could be quite enjoyable watching him try and rebuild himself. Everybody likes a redemption story. You know what I mean? Like, AJ was written off a little while ago, and now everybody's all about AJ. Tyson Fury came off the couch weighing 400 pounds, came back and won a title. Daniel Dubois, he's had a redemption story, hasn't he? So everybody likes that. So Joe's still got something to work towards if he wants it.
Only if you want it, yes I really want it.
It's a case of be careful what you ask for. Remember when he called out Derek Chisora? Him and David Haye called out Derek 2018 at the O2. They confronted each other. Derek said to David, if you believe in Joe, if I lose, you write me a check for £1. If I win, I want your purse against Tony Bellew and your TV rights. Of course, David Haye said no. This was 6 years ago. They were trying to use Derek as a stepping stone. That's how long they've been writing off Derek Chisora.